that when Jesus said that Satan was the father of lies and was a murderer from the very beginning, he is referring to whenever we fell for his trick and ate of the fruit, whether it's a metaphorical fruit or it was a literal fruit. He was tricking us into religion, and that caused us to die spiritually. So we know that the act of being in a religion is basically either reaching for or reaching up for something that we don't have, which is, we're reaching up or doing an action to reach God. That is, in the most essential, basic form, what religion is, and that's what we see in Genesis 3 at the fall of man, what the enemy made us or tricked us into doing, even though Adam and Eve were already sons of God. They were already like God because they didn't have to do anything. They already were sons of God. And so what the enemy tricked them into doing is performing an act of doing something to reach what they already had. So today, the act of religion or any form of religion is making an act or doing something in our minds or physical action in order to in what we believe will make us closer to God. And that's not true, because nothing that we can do will get us closer to God. So the clip I'm about to show you puts it perfectly of what religion is versus what we already have whenever we become Christians and we become sons of God, because we no longer have to do those things. And so this clip shows exactly what it is and shows it and reveals a little bit of a different perspective to show what relationship of being a son of God versus what religion is, of what Satan wants us to do.
Now, the tree of knowledge of good and evil is how we know right from wrong. And to know right from wrong is good. It's very effective. To have a law protects you and stops you from doing silly things and damaging yourself and others. So why isn't it good? It's not good because we use it to qualify ourselves before the Father, which is offensive. Because if you're here as far from God as you can possibly get, and then by the knowledge of good and evil, you start doing things to get yourself closer to God. I've started giving money, and I've started reading my Bible, and I've started going to church. And then I didn't go to church this weekend. I read less of the Bible, but I said sorry, and I went to a worship meeting. This going back and forth, trying to get closer and closer and closer to God, is religion. A religion of our own invention by the help of Satan. This doesn't exist. This whole process, getting closer to God and doing things wrong, getting further and further from God, doesn't exist. You're either separate from Him or one with Him. You either have the Spirit of Christ or you don't have the Spirit of Christ. You're either a saint or you ain't. And there's nothing in between. You're either a human under Adam or the complete righteousness of God being one of His children. You can't go back and forth like this. This doesn't exist. There's only here or here. If you've received Christ, then you are raised and seated in heavenly places, one with Him, and you have His righteousness forever. He's wiped by your sins, you're clean in His sight forever, which was always His plan, by your DNA, by receiving Christ.
So with that video, it's very clear that when Jesus said that Satan was the father of lies and was a murderer from the very beginning, He is referring to whenever we fell for his trick and ate of the fruit, whether it's a metaphorical fruit or it was a literal fruit. He was tricking us into religion, and that caused us to die spiritually, because we are having to make moves, make actions to make us feel like we are closer to God. Whenever we come to Christ, we are already there. We don't have to make any actions in order to get closer. We are already God's righteousness through Christ. And Adam and Eve were already there too, because they were created that way. They were already sons slash children of God, and so they had to make no action there. They were just it. And so whenever today, with this mindset that we have, this religious mindset, thinking that we always have to go to church, we always have to do this, have to read our word, do this, do this, do this, just to be closer to God. There is a difference between being closer and growing, or there is a difference between growing with God for our mindset, for our thought process, and thinking that we have to do stuff to get closer with Him. The latter, the thing that we think that we have to do to get closer to Him, that is religion. And that is what Satan tricked us into, essentially killing us all at the very beginning. And he still is doing it. It's the repeat of from the very beginning. As long as he can keep us into that cycle, thinking we have to do this stuff in order to get closer to God, versus already knowing that we're already God's righteousness. We don't have to do anything better to get closer. That's the trick right there.